So, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be chicken, gammon and leek pie. Came about because my mother gave me 2 leeks that she didn't want, and I thought, what on earth am I going to do with these? So the answer is pie. The answer is almost always pie. Just scanning through the ingredients there, so I've got butter, milk, flour, mustard, salt and pepper, chicken breasts, a couple of gammon steaks and those 2 leeks, and you will notice that what I haven't got there is any pastry. This is because as I began to make my pie, I discovered that Natalie had accidentally used the pastry that I thought I had in the fridge. So Anthony had to pop off down the shop and get me some more. So I'm just taking the ends off the leeks here, both ends off. You could probably use a bit more of the leafy end than I chose to, but mine were a little bit big anyway. So ends off the leeks and then chop them up. You need to slice down the centre of your leeks so that you can take the outer leaves off. Leeks have a tendency to gather a load of kind of grime as they grow, and just showing you that there in the camera, they gather this level of grime as they grow up, and so if you slit down, then when you rinse out you can be sure to get rid of all that muck, because you don't want that in your pie obviously. And then I'm going to slice them up into small pieces, smallish anyway.
The sun is always shining bright, but if the sky would open up, you're staying home, you don't get out. You always used to love the rain.
Once that's done, they go into a colander so that they can be rinsed thoroughly. You just rinse them under cold water in the sink, making sure that you agitate them quite a lot as you're doing it to make sure that all of that grime comes out. I really don't want to find a piece of that dirt in my pie. So into the colander under running water. You can't do this in standing water, even though it feels wasteful in the water. You can't do it in standing water because you really do want all that grime to be rinsed away properly. And then left to drain and just rinse off my chopping board, ready for the next step. The next step is to cut up my gammon steaks. Now, this was a pack of 2 from Iceland, and there's quite a lot there, and I probably could have got away with using the 1, but I thought I would just make a nice overfilled pie. Anthony was particularly hungry this day. He'd been moaning that he was hungry for hours before I even started the pie procedure, and the discovery that he had to go down the shop nearly finished him. But yeah, so there I am, dicing up the gammon into the smallest pieces I can manage, really. And then it goes into quite a large pan on a high heat. I did put a little bit of oil in here. I could have started with the butter. I need butter for the sauce anyway, but I thought I would fry off the gammon in a little bit of oil before I begin. And at this point it really doesn't need any salt, because of course gammon is quite a salty meat anyway. So the gammon into the pan with a little bit of oil, and then add my leeks and give it a really good thorough stir around. I want all of that to be coated in the oil that I've got. I want to be thoroughly mixed in, so that as it cooks those leeks will soften and break down slightly, and I want the gammon to be cooked all the way through as well. Back to my chopping board, and it's time to dice up the chicken breast. I really should get some sharper knives actually, because I did discover while I was slicing and dicing that my knives are not as good as I'd like them to be. Dice your chicken breast. I used 2 whole chicken breasts for this pie, but it is quite a large dish, as you will see in a bit. So dice your chicken breasts up into small pieces, and then I took those over to the sink once they were done to give them a bit of a rinse as well. While my gammon and leeks have been bubbling away merrily, and I'm just about to add quite a large knob of butter. I didn't really measure this, but I suppose it would have been, I don't know, maybe an ounce, I suppose, maybe a bit more. And I'm going to stir that through until it's melted thoroughly, and then after that's done we will add the chicken. There's the chicken going in, and that's going to be stirred through again and just left to cook away until it's completely opaque. I want my chicken fully cooked before I start to add the ingredients that will make the sauce around the pie, because I want to be absolutely sure that that chicken is thoroughly cooked through.
'Cause in the end, I'm just trying to show you, you don't need more pain and misery.
While my chicken is cooking, I'm going to start on my pastry. Anthony's got back from the shop with my pastry while I was busy doing that, so I'm going to flour up my work surface. I always use ready rolled pastry, although in this instance it probably would have been easier if I just used a slab, because as you will see I misjudged my quantities a little bit on my pie dish. I used a larger pie dish than I usually use, and you'll see what happens in a minute. So I've taken my pastry off of its greaseproof paper, and I'm just rolling it out to be slightly larger, and then moving it over onto the pie dish, gradually kind of draping it, and then you push it in using your knuckles. If you use your fingertips, you will tend to put your nails through it, but if you just use your knuckles, you can ease it into the corners more easily, and then trim off all around the edges. You will see that I've got a funny bit of shape there on the edge where there's no side, but I'm going to patch that up in just a second with a little piece of the offcuts. Remember what the advert said, people, you've got to be proud of your puffed up pie. It doesn't have to be beautiful to taste amazing. So there I am, patching up that little corner there. And then all of these little offcuts I'm going to put on one side because they will be the lid in a minute.
I'm here to give you everything you need.
Let's go back to my saucepan now, bubbling away merrily on the hob. You can see that the chicken is cooked through, it's fully opaque, there's no pink bits showing, and there's quite a lot of liquid in the pan there that has come from the knob of butter that I added, and also the water that comes out of chicken when you cook it anyway. That's going to form the basis of the sauce, so I'm going to go in now, a couple of handfuls of flour. It's probably a couple of ounces at the most really, but you add this gradually and stir it through, and then add a bit more once that bit's gone through. Repeat the procedure until you've got something that looks quite stodgy.
What we got, and give me all of your love,
So we've got to the gloopy and quite unappetising stage, and that's where the milk starts coming in. Again, you add your milk gradually. I should imagine the quantities are somewhere between 1/4 pint and 1/2 pint, but it is going to depend on how much of your other ingredients you've got to start with. So it's one of those cases where you eyeball it. You keep adding your milk gradually, bit by bit, stirring it through, and as you do this, you will see your sauce just begin to develop. The milk will become incorporated, the flour is helping it all to thicken up. You've got all your meat juices in there from your gammon and chicken as well. It's looking really quite tasty at this point, and we're just going to carry on gradually adding milk until we're happy with the thickness of the sauce and the quantity that we've got going on. Just going to speed this bit up for you so that you don't have to sit there through me interminably pouring and stirring and pouring and stirring. And now it's time to season. A little bit of salt, but not too much, because again the gammon was quite a salty meat to begin with. Probably a good shake of pepper, maybe that's 1/2 teaspoonful, I don't know. Again, that pepper's going to be your own personal choice. If you're Kelly from Flipping Fantastic Finds, you're going to put half that jar of pepper in before you're happy. But I just like a little bit to add a little bit of extra flavour. And the next thing going in is about a teaspoonful of Coleman's dry mustard powder. I find dry mustard powder very handy rather than wet mustard. It keeps for ages. Turning the hob all the way down to the lowest possible heat and leaving that to bubble away. Going back to my pastry. This is the point where I realised that my pastry lid is going to be quite thin. I didn't have quite enough for a decent lid, but be proud of your puffed up pie. In we go with the filling. Now you can see now that that flour and sauce has thickened up lovely. That's a really nice thick creamy sauce that we've got going on there. Scraping out the pan to make sure I get every last bit of that in there and spreading it out nicely before the lid goes on.
those days made me.
So my lid is a little bit thin and it's a little bit misshapen and it's a little bit doesn't cover all the edges, but there's an easy way around that. After I've fitted my lid, I'm going to turn down all the sides from the edge of the dish and just not have a beautiful pie. It doesn't have to be beautiful to taste amazing. So as I turn down the sides there, I can cover up any gaps where my pastry didn't quite reach and seal that down just by pressing gently with my finger. I don't want to press too hard. Finger will go straight through, but just pressing down, sealing the edges up. And once that's done, we're going to come in with a pastry brush and some milk and just give the top a brushing over to make it brown nicely in the oven. My pie is going into the oven now for about 20 minutes at 180-ish degrees, around about gas mark 4 or 5, and here's the finished result, a lovely brown, thick and creamy chicken, gammon and leek pie, and I have to say we thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye bye.